emotion is the most important thing. I don't care what the viewer thinks.
But you do.
I don't know that I do. If I like it and I think it's great and it works for me, then that's it. Embrace the imperfections, highlight the imperfections, show your scars. There will always be someone who's better at whatever you're doing than you are, but you can always be the hardest working person in the room. And I think the hardest working person will always win. Number one, like if you don't keep an eye on yourself, like nobody else is going to.
Yeah.
The world's just gonna kind of take till there's nothing left. I had dreams and aspirations that I thought my videos could get me there. But the minute I stop trusting how they make me feel and start looking to how they make others feel, it's like that's when you fail. Do the work. Ideas are cheap, inspiration is cheap. I discount all of those. Those mean very little to me. All I care about is the work. Any person worth their weight like needs to be challenged in life. Otherwise, what's the point of waking up every day?
Yeah.
You know all the stories about like the guy who busted his ass his whole life and then retired and 5 years later was dead because he just like couldn't handle being bored. My muse in life was my grandmother, who like fell in love with tap dancing when she was 8.
Oh yes,
and had a tap dance studio until she was 92 years old because she fucking loved it. This woman worked 40 hours a week on her feet till she was 92. That's my dream. When I started filmmaking, I wasn't much of a filmmaker. I had a really junky point and shoot camera and I had an iMovie. I've never learned the technicalities of filmmaking. It's only through doing that I learned how to create. Work hard and be brave. Overnight, I went from someone who made videos to share with my friends to someone who made a video that was seen by millions of people. I love telling stories. Telling stories is my passion. That was when I decided to sort of walk away from TV and walk away from movies. I just wanted to make YouTube videos. I like to make and move on, and that just feels good to me. Like it's purely about the act of creation. Making movies was a way of sharing ideas and sharing my perspectives with people that I otherwise might not ever have the opportunity to interact with. Bill Clinton was the best.
Wait, you got to interview Bill?
Yeah, our idea was that we give him a t-shirt to Bill Clinton, to President Clinton, that says, Fred Hochberg turned 50 and all I got was this stupid t-shirt from Lillian Vernon. But we get there and his handlers are like, you wanna do what now? And we're like, we have an idea. And they're like, no ideas. We had this little rinky-dink camera. Yeah. We didn't have a teleprompter, we didn't have a lavalier mic, we just had the onboard. And I was like, Mr. President, I have an idea. And like went right at him. And I just remember I remember Secret Service like jumping up at me. Yeah. And I like run across my hand out and I was like, here's the idea. And I was like, we made you this. And he's like, boys, I love it. You're recording? And we're like, yep. And he like one take wonder, fucking nails it.
Do you think at all in that moment what could happen if this doesn't go right?
No, I never think about if it goes wrong. There's never even a consideration. You spend your 20s figuring it out, you spend your 30s doing it, and then you spend your 40s enjoying it. I can find a level of success by just making it about quality.
What if your videos didn't get millions of views? Would you still make videos?
Yeah.
And you did.
I used to make them, put them on VHS tapes and like give them to people who hope they'd watch, but I didn't care. I don't know that the audience knows what they want to see. I know that I don't know what's going to pique my interest. That external validation, it's not interesting to me. So much so that like I want to be really careful that that's not why I do it. I put my head down and I try to ignore the world and I try to make something that I think is really good. And if people like it, great. If they don't, I don't care as long as I like it. The interesting thing that happens when you don't know the way is that you have to find the way. When I look back at my career, I see all of these tangents, and the tangents that have always yielded success were the ones where there was no established path, no defined route for me to take. But I went down it anyways. And through that kind of exploration, I always discovered something new. The cinematic aspects are being marginalized, and what's taking its place is sort of a more relatable story. One of my most watched videos that was shot terribly on a mobile phone, but the story is so poignant that 13 or 14 million people still elected to see it. It's not how you tell it, it's what you tell. So it never has anything to do with what camera you shoot on. It doesn't have to do with camera tricks or high production or low production. The thing that occurs to me the most was the headspace required to come up with a fresh video every day. Like trying to tell the stories that I want to tell as best as I can possibly tell them. It's what you're saying. That is the only thing that anyone will ever respond to. And if some days that's a little bullshit story about nothing, great.
Right.
And some days it's about, bigger, more existential topics that I lay in bed thinking about every day. That's also fantastic. This is a hard, cold world we live in, and people don't give a fuck. Everybody has their own problems. Let me let you know why you should care instead of just telling you to care. Shift all of your focus from how to do it to what you're doing. What is it that you want to communicate? Yep. What drives you? Whoever is telling the story has to believe in what they're saying. I tell a story, I'm communicating something that's important to me, a way that it can reach people beyond just myself. The thing that I think about the most is like the how of it. I can only edit chronologically. I start with the first frame, and when I get to the last frame, the movie's done. I don't edit clips, I don't do string outs, I don't do any of that. We're totally imperfect, and why shouldn't a film be imperfect? Why is it that in a painting we like to see the brush strokes, but in a film it has to be polished, it has to be so scrubbed clean that there's no sign of humanity behind it? As long as you're focused on what is my video today, then are you ever really present in what's happening in your actual life? The second I would click upload and that video is live, then and only then could I start to think about the next video. And why I love making little videos that I can start and finish in a day is because that's a straight line from A to B. Just get rid of all distractions. I don't have an assistant. I don't have somebody that helps me with my phone calls or my schedule. I don't keep a schedule. I don't have a calendar. I don't take phone, nothing. I am just nothing. My agent doesn't know how to reach me, and that's fine because I just want to sit here alone and figure out how to make videos. I don't really like the word inspiration. I like the word motivation. The working part always matters more than the inspiration part. Work is always more important than the idea. I'm motivated by everything around me. Good for you. God bless you if you are ever in a position where you feel like you're drowning in opportunity.
Right.
But for somebody like me, whom, I spent the first decade of my career just struggling and so poor and having a little kid and little boy that I could barely support, and any opportunity was such a huge deal, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a position where there's myriad opportunity coming from every direction. To say no feels so irresponsible. I still pay a therapist hundreds of dollars an hour to help me understand and come to terms with this idea that it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
It's okay to let people down every once in a while. I always made a living so I could make movies. I never made movies to try and make a living. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of newcomers do, is that they focus on how can my passion pay me? And I think that's a terrible place to start. Life shrinks and expands in direct proportion to one's willingness to take on risk. The act of exploration is the act of assuming risk. The greater risk taker is the greater explorer. In 2003, viral means you copy the URL, you put it in an email, you type in friends' names, you click send. There's no YouTube.
Yeah.
There's no Twitter, there's no Instagram. When I've been hired by clients to make viral videos, I always tell them I have no idea how to make a viral video, but I'll make you the best video I can possibly make. And we did make a lot of videos that I think are now art, but we didn't know what we were doing. And we would just make them because it's all we could afford to make. We did one, it was a really close-up video of building a little log cabin, if you can imagine, out of matchsticks. But we're building it on top of an electric burner. So at some point in time, the whole thing's gonna combust. And it was this beautiful thing. If you take mothballs and you put them in vinegar, the mothballs sink, but then bubbles go on them, and then they rise. The bubbles pop, and then they fall. And they start dancing. Art. Influence is much, much more valued than creativity, and that sucks. In the course of the year, you see 100 things, paintings, or hear songs, or watch movies, or YouTube videos, or watch a TikTok that affect you, that you don't stop thinking about. We're now seeing 1 million, but that number of how many affect you, that hasn't moved for me. I don't see more brilliant stuff. I just see more stuff. What concerns me is that that's what's sort of being celebrated, is now it's purely about the metrics and not about how you achieve those metrics, and that sucks. Companies that we wanted to work with that would never hire us, we just would make the fucking commercials and put them on our website and pretend that they had hired us. That's how I got my first job for Nike. And I made them this 5-minute Nike video, and they played it there. And believe me, from that moment forward, when people were what do you do for a living? I was I make Nike commercials. In reality, I had made one $5,000 Nike video. Music is it's another guide, it's another tool to help the viewer through the story, letting the viewer know what they should be paying attention to and when. It's a crutch to let the viewer know how they should be feeling. What about this moment is meaningful to me? And how do I share that inside of 20 seconds? How can I make sense of this moment to my audience in my video that goes beyond just saying I went and recorded a podcast with my friend? There's something sort of Sisyphusian about the creative process where if you hit the brakes and stop, that ball rolls right down to the bottom. If the reason why you're doing anything creative is to make a living, then you're doing it wrong. You get into it because it's a true passion. It's something you really believe in, or don't get into it at all. And for me, with making movies, it's sort of my sense of purpose. And I think if that were to go away because I want to sleep more, run more, do something like that, that I think I'd feel like a bit of a shell of a human being. You have all the agency in the world. You don't need anything from anyone. But if you're not willing to commit the time to it, you're never going to find that success.